Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Cloak and Dagger. A great episode, a lot of interesting things that went down in this episode. I really like how they structured in this episode, kind of like picking up with the church conversation, but bouncing back and forth to kind of where they are after the conversation. And it's almost like taking what they learn from their conversation with each other and kind of applying it to their lives in each of their own ways. Whether you want to make the argument successfully in some cases and kind of not so successfully in others, but never mind, we kind of break everything down. The episode did kind of also clarify other things too, because my misconception was that purely both situations, like they both read into people's hearts, their spirit, which is true, but I didn't notice it until they pointed it out. They see two different things. Ty sees people's fears, whereas Tandy sees people's hope. So it's just like, oh, that's such an interesting thing. Even she admits it's kind of ironic. But in the end, I guess, because I guess it's kind of based on who they are. Like the fact is, fear is because Ty's lived so much of his life in fear. I mean, ever since he grew up in that situation, plus just being who he is, America being in the climate that is in, like for him, he doesn't, like, I'm black. It's like, I can't, like, I'm not safe anywhere. I just got to live every day making sure I don't mess up because I could easily just get killed for no, for reason, just being black, But in Tandy's case, she's very hopeful, even though she seems very pessimistic. I think she's kind of got like a little bit of what I like to call myself as kind of like a budding optimist, essentially. It's not the proper term, but it's just like there's an inner optimist in her, even though she doesn't outright show it. Maybe that's why she's so pessimistic on the outside, just because she does believe so wholeheartedly on the inside. She does hope on the inside that she just doesn't really want to show it. So like seeing the conversations kind of go back and forth between them, kind of learning a little bit more about each other, like I said, applying this to their lives. Like initially she wasn't trying to give Greg a chance, but she was trying to make things better with her mom. It's like because she wanted to learn more about the whole Roxanne situation. But like obviously she's like, oh, Greg's just another one of those dudes. He's married. You're just kind of like ass on the side for him. But it turns out, no, like, she actually touches Greg and sees inside of his heart, like, he actually kind of wanted to make things work between them. Even when he wanted Tandy and her mom and him to all be kind of like a family. And I think that kind of gave her a different perspective. I mean, and that's the uniqueness of their abilities. They can see especially in her case, she can kind of tell what someone's saying, because for Tandy, she doesn't really believe people. I think she kind of, like, once again, kind of being a little pessimistic, kind of just assumes the worst in people. And just like, especially because it's happened time and time again with the other guy that's kind of popped up in her mom's life. So in her own way, she's very defensive about the situation because every other guy's just popped up. It's just taking advantage of her mom or taking advantage of circumstances. So Greg's in his own complicated situation, though. He's going through a divorce. Like, him and his wife are separated to a certain extent, but it seems like maybe she's trying to make things work, but it doesn't seem like he's trying to do that because he's like, for him, it's like the only thing that just hasn't gone through yet is the paperwork. So for him, it's like he legitimately loves Tandy's mom, and just like he feels like they can just talk about nothing, and it's okay, like that. That type of love feeling you have with someone when it's just kind of like you can just always talk and it's just okay. It seems like for him and Janie, it's just kind of like things didn't work out. No matter how much we hard tried, it just never worked out. And like I think all that made her see him in a different light, even when the time came up later on. I guess it's because Tandy's mom, because she saw Janie calling, it's like I guess it made her kind of slip back into reality. Like, oh, I guess everything is not 100% okay. Like, we had our fun moments and everything, but you're just using me. So she kind of took what Tandy. I think she does exactly the same thing as Tandy does. Like, when things get good, when things are serious, like, she kind of pushes things away because she's scared. Which sadly in the end is going to be something she regrets because her and Greg kind of left things badly. Because we end up seeing that he's killed, which obviously that's got to be someone from Roxanne because he was looking into Roxanne, him and Tandy. Like, Tandy was helping him look through some of the stuff he's looking into because things don't make sense. Like, the rig blew up and everything. They put all the blame on Tandy's dad. But the fact of the matter is, rather than burying it, they're keeping it secret. There's like shell corporations connected to it. So they're still like, either it's most likely they are keeping it like, they're probably trying to keep it secret what actually went wrong there exactly, because they were probably up to some super shady stuff, probably still are. What they're probably doing is keeping it under the radar by making it seem like, oh yeah, the rig is destroyed, we're no longer dealing with it, but secretly they're still working from it. Maybe they're just hiding the fact is they're working from it. I mean, the rig did collapse, so maybe they're in the process of trying to rebuild it in some shape or form, or at least continue what they were doing on the rig or whatever that was in some other capacity. So, but they killed Greg because he was asking too many questions, which is kind of interesting. I guess that kind of right there shows you just how big of this situation is, cover up whatever it is that they've got going on, is how much of a big deal it is that they are getting like hired assassins to kill people. I mean, to be fair, it's like this is like a million, probably $1 billion corporation. So the fact of the matter, well, probably billions, probably. So it's like, yeah, any mishaps they want to kind of keep as low to the ground as possible. Like I said, it's just kind of sad because, especially because it's sad because Tandy's mom was leaving him those messages. She's like, oh, I'm so apologetic because she broke up with him and everything, and just would never get a chance to, because Tandy was going to come tell her, but then heard her over the phone. I don't know, maybe Tandy did ultimately tell her, but I think it's just that Tandy just didn't really have the heart to tell her, just couldn't, so. All the while you had the whole thing with Ty where he's, kind of trying to take Tandy's advice about getting close to the cop. It's like, oh, like, because for him, he's very uncomfortable going into a police station because it's like, oh, you can't really trust any cops. It just makes him super uncomfortable. So he makes up this lie because she's like, oh, do what I did when I tried to con you. I made you, I built this narrative and made you feel sympathy for me. So that made you lower your guard. So he tries to do that, but he can't because being around all those cops scares him because which is understandable. After the whole situation with his brother, it's like you be very, not just that, like I said, just the whole dynamic of everything. It's like, of course you'd be scared to like trusting the cops too after what you've been through. So. But he kind of bails, and his dad found out about the cutters. He's like, oh, either you're using those to steal or try to break in anything, especially because of the way he was acting earlier. He was just like, I got things to do. Because obviously, because once again, it's the conversation. His parents are super protective because it's like they are super scared of him making the same mistakes that Billy did. And it's something that he ends up talking about. For him, it feels like he has to do everything perfect. The conversation's already come up before, even before his mom referenced. Like, she's afraid that even if he does do everything perfect, she's going to lose him anyway. But for him, it's like, and it's a conversation I brought up before, it's like for him, basically, he has to live 2 lives, and that's a lot to kind of shoulder. But he ends up going with his dad. His dad kind of looking a little bit into his dad's past. His dad was kind of like, it seems like, they're going on a march and stuff like that. They probably did a lot more in the past, but it's just one of those things like, being younger and being very rebellious in a sense of like, in a good way, not just rebellious in a bad way. I mean, rebellion can be seen as good and bad. There are plenty of good rebellions as well. And it's just kind of like marching for what they believe in and stuff like that. It's even interesting, the whole spy boy thing. I thought that was kind of a nice thing where it's like, oh yeah, basically you go into uncharted territory, basically to warn people what's coming, essentially. So they travel great distances and stuff like that, which is interesting considering what Ty's ability is and everything. So I thought that was kind of fascinating how that kind of operates like that. There's even these the things they were making. I thought that was so fascinating with the beads and stuff. It's like, yeah, you mess up like in what you're doing, and it's like you could end up having to redo it all, a day's work, maybe even months worth of work. And it's like, that's crazy. But for him, it's kind of, and it's I think it's a message that resonated heavily with Ty in Affected Matter, is you have to have diligence and patience, because the fact of the matter is, it's kind of what you do. It teaches you that work ethic, because it's like, if you can't control yourself, you can't control a damn thing in your life. It's kind of the thing that's getting across. And I was like, that's so perfect for what Ty's going through right now, because he's kind of controlled by his anger and his like sadness and stuff like that. So it's just like, once he learns how to control himself, and obviously it works double for his abilities as well. So I thought that was kind of a nice touch. Even what he ended up picking up, I didn't even think it was Billy's, but the moment he grabbed the cloak, I looked at design. It's like, that's his signature cloak. That cloak is known for. I was like, that's nice. I was like, oh, he just randomly finds it like that. It's like, no, because it's the one Billy was working on. For him, it's like, I'm gonna finish it. I'm going to like march with you guys, symbolizing him kind of finishing when his brother started. And obviously that stands for a lot of stuff, because it's like, probably catching this cop who's behind killing his brother, who's gotten away with it for so many years. He's also just a dirty cop still currently. So I don't know, I thought that was just kind of like a nice touch. But his whole situation, I like too, that it ended up bringing him and his dad closer, and it's like, I think he is kind of finding some balance back, because he's like cooking for his dad and mom. He's cooking breakfast. Even his mom's like, okay, what the hell is going on here? Like, what are you two laughing about? It's like, it's nothing. It's kind of their well-kept secret. So I thought that was kind of a nice touch. Because he probably felt like, Ty was going down the wrong path. Because, like I said, Billy was a part of this too. Like, they were training him up to kind of take part 2, but he died before he could. So I guess, his dad felt like, okay, this is the time. Maybe I don't know how old Billy was during that whole situation, like when he died. So Ty's probably like, probably not the exact age, maybe he is, but I feel like he's probably more like around that age. So, like I said, just the conversations between them is really good, just because it's just kind of like them recognizing a lot of stuff, making them realize certain things. It's like, oh yeah, like, Ty's ability, not only does it teleport him where it takes him where he needs to be, not necessarily where he wants to go, and it kind of protects him to a certain extent. And the fact is that they'd kind of give anything to kind of have each other's abilities, but it's like that's why we don't get what we want and why what we and we got what we got. It's kind of it was just kind of an interesting thing, even being like they got their specific abilities for a reason, because it's like if they had the others' abilities, who knows what they do? Like they talk about it because Danny would just like go as far away, but it's like no, because that's not what she needs to do. Like because she spent so much of her time running away, like going back to the whole Ty situation, him seeing what was going down. And I think that's what sparked it in her to kind of dive into this Roxanne situation, because before she did always kind of run away from it. She didn't it's just kind of like, because for her, she in her mind, it's like she thought her mom, and I kind of thought the same thing, like her mom was only interested in the money, but it's like no, her mom was like, well, yes, the money will help, but mainly it's like her dad's name was dragged through them under his reputation, like all that was blamed on him, and that's why their family's in the like situation they are. And in her own way, her mom was trying to get that back, because it's like, oh, you remember what kind of man your dad was, and Tandy remembers a little bit, like, oh, what kind of man he was, the jokes, but even the jokes have kind of slipped her mind. She can't remember those little small details like that, because I guess just because of all the sadness associated with her dad and everything, like the happier times like that just kind of don't, I guess, stick around when just bad stuff upon bad stuff kind of stacks up. It is kind of interesting that, and I thought it was kind of beautiful what they said of the universe brings us together, yet at the same time pulls us apart, because their powers kind of grow stronger and activate near each other, but at the same time when they get too close, boom, they get like blown across the room from each other. So it's like they can't be too far away from each other, because they'll always find their way back to each other, but they can't be too close, because it's just shit goes boom, so. But the sad thing is, I think the most tragic thing is just like the bond between them, but then eventually they kind of fall apart the moment Ty hears her talking about the fact that she wanted to kill herself, because in his mind it's like, no, you're white, you got a good life, you will always have privilege, but me, I'm a black kid. The fact of the matter is, like, I'm always afraid of just dying, like, this world is constantly against me. But like Tandy's like, what about my life? Like, look at your life, you live in a good place, you live in a good home, both of your parents are alive and love you, oh boo hoo you, and it's like, I think it's such a beautiful thing, in a sense of, it's that thing where it's like you get so caught up in the details, you're not like, you both bonded on the fact that you've both been through a lot. Because in in Ty's case, he wishes his brother was still alive. He blames himself for what happens. It's like, once again, the whole having to live for two people because one life that's lost. And in Tandy's case, she wishes that she was the one that died, because it wouldn't hurt so much. It'd be easier. It wouldn't be easier on her parents, but at least on her it would be. And I get, that's ultimately what pisses Ty off, because it's like, you have this life, you could still live life. It's not that hard. You don't have to just give up and be willing to kill yourself. But at the same time, Tandy throws it at him like, the fact of the matter is, I saw what's in your heart. Like, the fact is, you want to commit suicide by a cop. And I think, and at least this is how I'm interpreting, maybe you could make the argument that Ty lashed out at Tandy, because obviously the aspect of like, don't kill yourself, like, you still have a life, you're the smart person, you can do a lot with your life, just don't throw it away no matter what it is. Because Tandy's like, no, I'm not saying I don't want to, but it's just a thought she's had in the past. But I think on some level, maybe he lashed out because he himself thinks like that, but hearing her say that just, it's kind of like having to confront yourself to a certain extent, because it's not only each other. Like, I think because they peered into each other's hearts, so they know each other better than any other person would know them. Like, there's no other person that would know them. That's even the conversation that comes up. They haven't told anybody about what's going on with them. She had Liam, but that kind of didn't work out. We still don't know where that whole situation stands. The last time we heard from Liam was in the premiere. Well, second episode of the premiere, but still. And, there's things between Vita and Ty, but then it's kind of like, I don't know where we stand in that whole situation. So, but it's just kind of, once getting back to what I'm trying to say, is the fact is, I feel like they're getting so caught up in just kind of the other things, not realizing like, they're kind of letting that other side of their ability go, the empathy, understanding each other, singing each other's heart. I think that's what brings them so close together. Once again, because they know each other like no other person does and ever probably could. Because, I mean, not even just them. They know people better than people would probably be able to know each other on such a level. Once again, to know their fears, to know their hopes, even without them speaking it out loud. But once again, the connection between them and stuff like that. So it's sad that things kind of ended the way they did, kind of them mad and pissed at each other. But it's a combination of probably feeling the way they did, just angry and sad. Plus the fact is, we're probably taking back stuff that they wish they hadn't said. It's just kind of sad. They come closer together. It's actually a metaphor for their whole situation. Once again, the universe brings us together. Like, we came together just because everything led us here, and then we just end up pulling ourselves apart just because they ended up clashing, opposites attract and stuff like that. So I just thought like I said, the show does a very good job of kind of like being direct with that aspect of them, like the whole yin yang aspect of it, but also having subtle things like that. Once again, like the whole him seeing fear and her seeing hope. There's like little things, like things like that. I think the show nails on such an amazing level, So it's interesting because it seems like Ty ends up kind of gaining a little courage, and it seems like he goes to Detective O'Reilly for help. Like, what's he's going to exactly go to her about? I don't know. I guess because in his mind, it's like he knows that, like, I guess Tandy talked about her. I mean, because Tandy kind of gets, like, she starts about to mention what happened between her and the rich kid. She's like, a guy that almost, and then she stops, not willing to admit was, I guess it's just, I mean, I can't assume anything. I can't, like, assume to know how she's feeling about it, but maybe it's just kind of like too hard to bring it forward because talking about it would just make it more real, and she'd probably rather just forget about it, so. But in Ty's case, I guess it's like maybe hearing about her from like, oh yeah, she's a detective, she's actually pretty good. I don't know, or maybe just serendipity. He just, I don't know. I feel like you don't just pull her name out of nowhere, so that's definitely gonna be interesting. I'm curious to see what he has to say. I mean, there is also a connection between O'Reilly and that dirty cop dude, too. Because, I mean, he came to her with that information to shut the case down, and she just kind of well, to be fair, he's probably like a higher-ranking officer, so she probably has to do it anyway. It's just kind of like sweeping everything under the rug. So once again, it's like their stories are separate, but at the same time, it makes you feel like maybe there is a deeper connection there. Maybe he has some kind of connection to Roxanne. Maybe he's just kind of like they need stuff to go away. They call like that dirty cop. I don't know. But also you had Tandy actually, sadly, taking Ty's advice. It's like, if you want to do it, just do it. Which obviously one of those things that's like, you're in the heat of the moment, you say shit you don't mean. It's just, you're so angry and stuff that you say some hurtful shit, And so Tandy like binds her hands, ties her legs, and jumps in the water. But like her power kicks in. So once again, kind of that hopeful situation. Even though she wants to end it all, there's still that glimmer of hope that shines so brightly in her, and it manifests itself in the form of her daggers, and she cut herself free. So I guess it made her realize, like, no matter how much I think I do want to die, somewhere deep down inside, I don't want to. That there, kind of what Ty says, that instead of running away, she wants, she fights. And I think that's what kind of set her mind. So she goes back to Greg's and steals those files from the, safe. So she is trying to fight back. Both of them trying to go about things. Like I said, even though they kind of had their blowout, the fact of the matter is, after everything that went down, their conversations with each other, things kind of playing out the way they did, they are willing to try and deal with their respective situations. So I'm very fascinated to see what goes down in the next episode with the continuation of all this. Like I said, this was a great episode, just kind of like. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good